Hi, everyone. It's Artie with Light Up Your Life. Hope you all are doing great. And if not, trying to navigate. I think it's all about navigating. Um, I was just navigating some internet difficulties. As we know, we rely on it so much. So I'm glad to be with you all. And I know we took a little bit of a break the last couple weeks and we had some pre recordings and all that kind of jazz, which is completely okay. Hopefully, you enjoyed some of our last few episodes. Um, and so I've been thinking a lot about the concept of serving in seasons. One of my Instagram posts, I think it was 2 or 3 weeks ago, I talked about I created one about serving in seasons. And um, I've been thinking about that a lot lately, where things sometimes will kind of dissipate on their own. Um, and I personally and professionally, a lot of things are shifting. And I think it's when things happen for you at times, you don't realize it when there's a need. Um, and so, yeah, I just want to remind you sometimes you just really do have to go with the flow. Today's conversation actually is such a powerful one. I think it always seems to come at the most powerful times when we talk about grief. Um, and I actually feel like my whole world now is becoming related to grief work too. So to have our guest today who really discusses it in a way that I think is transformational, the idea of meditation and grief. So his full name is G. Scott Graham, and he can correct me, but Scott is what he likes to be referenced as. Um, and when you all go online to his website, uh, I talk about jack of all trades a lot, but he has like 20 different things or more. We'll find out 20 or more things that he does. Two of the ones that are noted are being a career and business coach, but then you go into being like a meditation teacher, and then I mean, the list is so extensive. So we'll talk to him about all the things in his journey. Um, and then Scott's going to share with us what transformed his life with the passing of his husband of over 30 years. So 3 decades plus 1 year. I believe it was 31 years. And what that journey and what the isolation of COVID and what grief looked like. But then having his practice in meditation and how that helped to draw his own journey. And then we'll talk about this this book, Come As You Are: Meditation and Grief, which, to be honest with you, I'm really excited about sharing with my own clients as I continue to delve now more and more so in grief work. Here in Virginia Beach, 531 is when the uh, the massacre occurred. It'll be 3 years come a few weeks. So I am going to be doing some grief work. I have a grief workshop coming up next week, and then just to find ways to help our community heal locally, and then of course we also know nationally and internationally. I've also with the Ukrainian population, trying to figure out ways of helping to support those who are here abroad but have family back home or are just literally feeling that grief. So I feel like this book and the journey that Scott talks about, I think will be really healing as people look for references and resources. Um, I do know it's going to be part of the one that I'm excited about sharing. All right, without further ado, because you all know I can talk forever, but I'd rather talk with our guest. So, welcoming Scott to our show for today.
Hi, Artie. It is great to be here.
Well, thank you for being here. I couldn't have asked for a better, not that there's a better time, but I really couldn't have asked for a better time for us to be discussing this.
It's my privilege. Yeah.
So, why don't we just start with the beginning of time for you? So, where did you grow up? All of your logistics of your timeline from the beginning of time, I guess.
From the beginning of time, well, my mom got pregnant in Cleveland, Ohio. It's the very, very, very beginning. That's where she met my father in this little theater, and like a lot of stories of courtships back then, he just wouldn't go away, as she used to say it. He kept coming around and bothering me and asking me, and I kept telling him to get lost, and he just kept coming around. And finally, I just gave in, and we got married. And they were together for the rest of their lives after that, and had me. We moved to Florida when I was in high school, and then I went to college in Florida and worked through college. I was in college forever because I have an interest in many, 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 many things. So I couldn't decide on my major. I switched from all over the place. And then I came up to New England to be a wilderness-based therapist with Outward Bound, because I had gotten a degree in psychology and knew about substance abuse. I worked with kids in the woods doing counseling for 21 days at a time, year-round. And after that, got my master's degree, worked at an inpatient psychiatric dual diagnosis center for a while, then moved to Boston, took a job doing program development for Outward Bound, health courses, intervention courses, substance abuse courses. And that became a little bit difficult over time, just because of the logistics of life. And I ended up working for the Vermont Department of Corrections and managing a huge outpatient program for them eventually. And I worked with them for about 10 years, and then started my own coaching practice in 2006, left everything behind. And unlike a lot of coaches out there who really have hobby coaching practices because they have their day job, because they can't make it fly on the other end, I just jumped in completely and swam and swam. It was either I was going to make it or I was going to drown, and I made it. And so I've been a coach 17 years now, written 15 books. I teach Tai Chi on the side, run a 501c3 animal farm rescue. We have campers come there. I was lugging lumber through the woods this last weekend with volunteers to build the campsite. I'm an EMT. I'm a firefighter. I'm a lot of things.
Yeah,
a lot of things. I have a friend. Her name is Cindy Hollis, and she refers to me as a placenta of information, which I thought was insulting. She actually meant to say I was a plethora of information, but it came out as placenta. I was on another podcast and shared that, and this other host said, I think that's a compliment because it means like you're warm and nurturing. And I'm like, all right, that's a stretch.
Yeah.
I'll
Sorry,
take
for
it.
someone who had TMI, for someone who had a placenta abrupt, like that is, yeah, I would rather you be taking the plethora of what you do.
Cindy Hollis.
But that's awesome, because actually your journey kind of, and I hope this helps inspire our viewers and listeners that, I remember in my career counseling class, it's been 15 plus years now, but the fact is we were going to see this trend of changing careers at least an average of 10 times, which now we're seeing that trajectory for so many people, which careers, not even jobs, right? But then you're reminding someone that you really can do different things in this lifetime and manage and make it really great.
Thank you. Absolutely. Absolutely.
So, was your love of nature always there from childhood?
From when I was a little kid, I used to take walks in the woods with my father. And so that just stuck. I ended up hiking the Appalachian Trail, which is 2,000 miles long from Maine to Georgia. I did that before. When I did that, it was not like today, that where people get in their camps and they have solar chargers and they're connected with their cell phone. When I did it, there was no phones except for phone booths. So you were really on your own when you were out there doing it and there wasn't this high-tech light gear that you had to, carry minimal weight with you. It was all heavy stuff. That was in 1988 that I hiked the Appalachian Trail. And I've done a bunch of other long distance trails since then, including the long trail in Vermont. I'm on my second hike through of that. And I also hiked the GR20, which supposedly is the hardest hiking trail in Europe, but it's not at all. You get all this hate mail from all these people in Europe who are like, "What do you mean?" But compared to like the White Mountains in the United States, the trails in Europe are like, walks in the park. I mean, they're big, but they're really that there's a lot. I was more nervous with all the hype around the GR20 when I did it, and then I got there and I'm like, really, this is it. I don't know.
Yeah. The anticipation. Wow.
Right.
No, I ask you this because nature is becoming such a critical component of what we're missing, and so for you to incorporate that throughout, I mean, your journey and the work that you're doing with your clients, and this camp sounds amazing. By the way, your nonprofit, such an yeah. The more that we build these programs for kids to be out there, I'm such a big fan.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, Scott, can you share with us? So, I think it would be helpful. I realize as I've been, especially with clients talking about many of them who were very much afraid of approaching mindfulness or meditation because they had these myths and things that were conjured, and you know what I mean, like just things that
Yes. There's a lot of schlock out there around what mindfulness is and what meditation is, and everybody and their brother is peddling, some sort. It's like infomercials at night, like buy this weight machine and you will be a stud in just 2 days, right?
Yeah.
Do this audio program and you will meditate like a Buddhist monk in just 15 minutes. It's schlock. It's schlock.
It's totally ridiculous. But I just think the more that we empower, right? Like actually debunking the myth behind, oh, you need to be doing it for 30 minutes, regardless of whatever. Can you start by how did you fall into, Vipassana meditation? What is Vipassana meditation? Some of our viewers don't know. And how do you identify like someone who's trying to understand this practice or establishing a mindfulness practice? Like, what's your opinion on this?
Right. So the best metaphor, I'm also a personal trainer and health coach from many years. And
Sorry,
so
I'm laughing. This whole conversation you're gonna throw in, and I do that too, and then this, and then this. Right.
So the best metaphor that I can give for meditation is exercise. The best way to compare that with exercise. And especially, we live in a society where everybody's struggling to lose weight and eating all kinds of food and they're getting off the couch. And what do you people are like, there's no way I can go to the gym. There's no way I can run a half marathon. There's no way I can do this. There's no way. And it's the same thing that people approach meditation with. They think there's no way I can do that. Right? But what do you say to a person who's trying to get going around fitness? You say, I had one person who was struggling. I coached her for a while. And literally what we started off with was put your running shoes next to the bed. And then every morning, get up and put those running shoes on. Don't go running. Just get in the habit of putting those running shoes on. And then literally the next step after that was put the running shoes on, start your coffee brewing, and then walk to your mailbox and walk back. And this wasn't a person who was obese and couldn't run. She just was like, I don't have time for running. I've tried to do it so many times. I can't do it. And the same thing is true with meditation. Right? If you get bogged down by this, oh, I have to do 30 minutes. Oh, I can't do it. Oh, I have to do, this way. I have to be sitting in this position. I can't do it. It's the same thing. One of the thing that I got involved with meditation with was through SN Goenka's Vipassana meditation courses, which are 10 days long in a crack. And at the end of those 10-day courses, he says, in order for you to be successful, he waits until the very last day to tell you this. In order for you to be successful, you need to make a strong commitment to meditate every day, an hour in the morning and an hour in the evening for at least your first year. And you can see the collective weight of people as he's talking, going, oh, like, who can freaking do that? And so actually one of the books that I wrote a few years ago is called Now What to Do After Your Vipassana course is over. Really targeting those people who are like, there's no way I can do an hour in the morning, an hour, right? It's the same thing with the person who was trying to exercise, just walk to the mailbox. And so there's different types of meditation techniques. I talk about them in the book. There's 3 that I talk about in the book that are kind of core to my practice: Anapana, Vipassana, and Metavana. And Anapana is basically focusing on your breath. Vipassana is focusing on an awareness of your environment, and you build to Vipassana from Anapana. And Metavana is loving kindness, kind of spread loving kindness to the world. And the easiest way for a listener who's out there that says, oh, what can I do? The easiest way for you to take action is to start doing Anapana. You're just and here's the instructions. It's easy instructions. It's hard to do. Easy instructions. All you're doing is focusing on your breath. Without, this is the hard part, without verbalization, without saying in, out, 1, 2, 1, 2, without saying good, no bad, not hot, cold, any. And what's going to happen is that when you start doing that breathing, trying to focus here, see, it's a trick. This is the idea, to focus here, but the real focus of meditation is bringing our crazy, wacky minds back. Right? Like all of you out there have a crazy, wacky mind, just like I do, just like Artie does. That is it's the part of your mind that when you're quiet says all these really awful, crappy things to you. Like I would never let people talk to me the way my mind talks to me. I put up with a lot of hoo-ah from my mind. It's crazy. And it's difficult to get it to shut up. Right. And so one of the things that is out there for especially for therapists, and I'm going to tell you right now, this in the end run doesn't work, because the voice in your head is smarter than any type of intervention. So if you could do all these affirmations till the cows come home, and if you do those affirmations and you're like, I'm going to do this every morning, I'm staring in the mirror, I'm going to tell myself I'm good, I'm beautiful, I'm happy, I'm loved. Your mind is in the back of your head saying, oh, that's not really true. But this. And maybe if you really apply the work, you can maybe get some traction on it. But, think of it this way, if the kooky people out there that think COVID's fake and caused by cell towers and they're getting if the US government and the world cannot convince with evidence the crazy kooky thoughts around that, because cognitive behavior therapy, you're disputing what you're saying with this is the reality, this is what I'm saying, this is the reality, so this must not be true. Like that's like COVID, right? This is the reality, this is what my kooky head is saying, but even though they're saying this is the reality, I'm still going to go get injections meant for farm animals because that's what's going to cure me, right? There's people out there, even contrary to all the evidence that says the election was stolen. That same dynamic goes on in here. And you don't have the US government on your side for your brain, even though you might think you had an implant from the COVID injection and the US government is controlling you. You don't have the US government in here. It's just you and your kooky brain. So the best thing you can do to get a handle on that is Anapana. Because what happens is that your brain goes off and you say, you're thinking about the laundry list or sex or TV or some other thing that has nothing to do with anything. And you're like, oh, I'm supposed to focus on my breath. And without even a glimmer of frustration or self-criticism, because that's still thinking, you just come back to your breath. And then you take 2 breaths and your brain goes away again. And then you're like, oh, and you come back and take 3 breaths. And your brain goes away again. And then you come back and you take 4 breaths. So each time you practice this over time, You are telling your brain, no, 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 no. I'm in control. And you're doing it on a turf that your brain can't fight back on, because your brain is on the messaging words turf. And you're not using words on this piece. You're just using focus and determination. That's it. You can do this for 5 minutes. In fact, what you could do is if you did this for 5 minutes every day while you were taking a shower, right? You're in there anyway. Focus on your breath while you're in there anyway. You will have an incredible benefit from that little 5 minutes. It's like the person walking out to their mailbox. If you start walking out to the mailbox for 5 minutes every day, you're going to get longer and longer. You're going to feel confident. You're going to walk further and further. So 5 minutes is going to turn into 6 minutes. You're going to remember what you did in the shower. You're going to do it while you're sitting in the subway. You're going to do it while you're in the grocery line. You're going to do it while you're stopped at a traffic light till someone toots the horn and says, "Get moving!" Right? There's the potential for this to grow. So you don't have to, meditation isn't like signing up to run a marathon. Walk to the mailbox. I know I'm going on and on and on. It's my worst habit.
I love this. Because some people actually to remind us, and you're reminding to keep it basic, because beginner's mind is what John Kabat-Zinn, one of the mindfulness-based stress reduction in his program, just talking about beginner's mind, right? And the Buddhist principle of beginner's mind, so you're just reminding that humbleness of, it's not about 30. Like I tell people, don't get fixated on the amount of time, right? This time of social construct that we keep just marinating on and killing ourselves with. We say we don't have enough time, which is true. But still, we always say we don't have enough time. But how do you make time? You just gave an example. You're taking a shower. You can do it. There's no principles around this, which I love, because it's a design it yourself program. Like you can add a point if you decide you love it so much, then go for the meditation. You may just start a mindfulness practice. It's okay. But you have to start somewhere. And I love
you have to start.
I love you talking about the shoes. I tell my clients all the time, put the shoes, if you want to work out, they just need to be next to your bed. Like your brain will see that visual, it will feel it, it will naturally get into the habit. Right?
It's like people who get sober from drugs and alcohol and are like, I can't stay. Well, just stay sober for 15 minutes, for 30 minutes, for 1 day. And 1 day becomes 2 days, becomes 3 days, becomes 4 days, becomes 4 years, becomes 40 years. But you don't start off by saying, I'm going to stay sober for the rest of my life and do this.
Absolutely. And that's setting ourselves up for failure. And I just recently, I'm glad you talked about, again, that time concept, right? The idea behind it. Wait.
Look. Here we go. You can get this book for free. This is a big book. This is 200 pages. Make time your superpower. You can get it free on Amazon. Not the paper copy, but you can get the paper copy, has pictures and fun stuff in it. But you can get this book free, the ebook free on Amazon, Google Play, all those places. Apple Books.
Wait, can you put that cover back on?
Well, I put the time on. Here we go. Ready?
When did you write this one? Okay, cover on. When is this one? Is this written? Because this is 2020. This is during the pandemic. You finished this, correct?
Yeah. Well, I got free time when I'm doing this, so I wrote like this one. This one's an exercise book. This is one of my favorite ones. Get off your ass and mow the grass. And this one's written for counselors. Treatment Planning 101. This is one of my best books, in my opinion. I've written a whole. This is a book on marijuana. This is also one of my best.
As we are approaching this, yes, because there is very much of a high need to make sure that we have the right information. So,
oh my God, it's a nightmare with clinicians who are in substance abuse counselors are going to face. If you go to see your doctor and you say to your doctor says, "Do you drink?" And you say, "Yeah." What? Well, how much do you drink? Well, if you say I have an 8-ounce glass of beer every day, he's going to be like, "Oh, okay." But if you say I have an 8-ounce glass of vodka every day, he's going to be like, oh, we need to talk, right? Because we know that vodka is like so much more than beer, right? If someone's drinking an 8-ounce glass of vodka versus an 8-ounce glass of beer, we know that. Now these people are going to go see clinicians and they're going to say, what do you do for marijuana? And they're going to be like, well, I do this gummy, I do that. I have marijuana infused potato chips for night, and I do this and do that. They're going to be like, how the hell do we? This book will help you figure that out.
Oh my goodness. And that is so critical. I do think a lot about our clinicians because you're right. The amount of the volume of what is necessary, because mindfulness practices is one of the things that we're encouraging clinicians to take on, right? But
right.
There's a lot of
all these other pieces that are out there.
Right. Then we're talking about grief work, as you and I both know, that's a beast of its own. That takes a lot, and a lot of clinicians have never had formal training. Right. Yeah. So
can I share with you my latest insights around grief? They're not even in the book.
Yeah, please.
One of those I did a blog post on just very recently. It's called 840 Days. It's on my Medium account. And it blew me away. So Brian died roughly 28 months ago. And during that 28-month period, I also ended up with two complete knee replacements. Like, went in the hospital, sliced it up, and boom, I have two brand new knees, not at the same time. And it blew me away. And this was the impetus of this, that nobody ever asked about my grief, right? I was with Brian for 31 years. And granted, I've had my knees for 59 years, so it's a longer period of time. But everybody asks about my knees all the time. All the time. People that don't even know me hear, oh, you got a double knee replacement. They're like, hey, how's your knees? How's it going? How's your knees? How's your knees? Nobody ever asks about my grief. And the reality with grief is that it doesn't go away. It just doesn't go. I was in a recording yesterday, and this one host who actually would be a great person for this show, his name is Michael Malone, and he has a podcast, a video called Wait and See. Blew me away. And it's about grief and loss and mental health and making changes. And he said to me in that podcast yesterday, he said, you know what I heard, and he says, I still hold on to this when my grief comes up, he says, that is grief doesn't become less. It just becomes less often. So true. So true. Everybody forgot. So here's my tip, especially as you approach May 31st. All you have to say to folks is, because a friend said to me after I wrote this, he said, that was a crappy article. You didn't give anybody any idea what to say. You just complained about. And I'm like, well, I don't know what the hell people should say. And I talked to some other clinicians, and then it hit me. You just got to talk about grief like you talk about your knees, and say, how's your grief? Because when you say that, if someone came up to me and say, how are you doing with Brian? Right? How are you? You still think about him? How's that going? We are talking in my grief, right? I'm going to start crying. I'm going to talk about, well, I was thinking about him yesterday and this came up, How's your grief? You're talking about the grief. And you'd be like, yeah, Thursday was a difficult day. Sunday it was fine. It hasn't really, I haven't really had any issues with grief in 2 weeks. So how's your grief? And my friend who I came up with this has asked me since then, and a number of other friends that I interact with has asked me since then, how's your grief? It is amazing. It is amazing because it normalizes it. It makes it open. You're not afraid that someone's going to start crying because you're not talking in the grief. You're talking about the grief. Right?
I love how open-ended that is, right? We always want to go from surface to getting deeper, right? Right. And it allows a very, very open-ended but spacious enough to be like, I am gonna go there with you because you deserve that, right? You
Right.
deserve to be asked. Yes, your needs matter, but so does your grief, right?
Yeah.
So does your relationship with someone and I know you know this, Scott, personally and professionally. We like approach that 12-year every month is like it hits like a time, but it hits in those first, it hits so hard, right? I mean, like, and I think
Right.
not acknowledging by walking around eggshells, trying to figure out what do I say? I say nothing at all. That's
Right.
the number one mistake we're making. Our anxiety around grief and what it'll bring up. I'm afraid I'm going to set them off. But when you talk to a griever, what are they looking for? What are you looking for?
You're just looking for someone to be there and be your witness. Just like I'm looking for someone to talk to me about my knees, right? If
Mhm.
someone brings that up, I'm not going to be like, well, I'm going to be like, well, this one's hurting a little bit. This one's clicking this. You're not going to go there. The other piece that I need to write this post on this because I've been in a number of podcasts and I had another therapist sent me a message on Facebook, and she said, it's really nice to see you growing, which was really insulting because there's a couple of things that are embedded in that thing. First, nice is an evaluation, right? So it was bad before, but now I'm doing good. It was nice. Horrible thing to say. And there's this assumption that you're growing, so that grief's a problem, right? People who are out there, if you're out there watching this or you're listening to this when it's rebroadcast and you know grief, you know that there's no growth through this. This is really the truth. And this is the other thing that people can say. The truth is, people who are grieving are persevering in the face of adversity. That's the truth. We're not growing. You don't see it as much because, of course, it's less often. But the truth is, we are persevering in the face of adversity. A woman who has lost her 10-year-old to an automobile accident is going to persevere in the face of that adversity for the rest of her life. There's no magical growing beyond that. So you can say that. And then the other piece to say is what's he saying when he says nice? What's the feeling? Well, the feeling probably is you're impressed or you're astounded or they're a role model. So instead of saying nice to see you growing, you can say something like, I'm impressed to see you being so tenacious and continuing on with all this bullshit still floating in your life.
Yes,
That's the
awesome.
truth. That's the truth.
Yes. Yes. I love it. I love it so much because it acknowledges it acknowledges how it is, right? But it's also and permission giving. The problem is there's not enough permission giving with grief in the sense of like, oh, we just walk around like look at what's happened. We have re-immersed after all of this, and people are walking around and
Right.
they're holding all of this anxiety and wanting to be unleashed, but no one even knows. Like no one
Right.
even knows. Oh, right? No, we're not
Be
going to go
very
there.
quiet. Be very
Yeah.
quiet. We don't want to talk about it.
We don't want to talk about it. It's been too, yes, it was hard to manage during these confined walls. And I know it was hard, but we don't, now that we can get together in person, I don't want to go there with it.
I think it's going to be even worse now that we can get together in person because we were all in isolation and everybody we cared about died.
Mhm.
I can't, not everybody. I mean, I know that's people are going to say,
No.
oh, but so many people died and everybody bottled that up for all that time. And then now they're going to be out, shopping and going on. And there's this perception or belief that, well, it's in the past and it's gone, but you might as well have been in a coma for those 2 years we were locked up. Right. And now you're out, you're going to come, you're going to hear a song, you're going to see this, and then it's going to come out sideways and you're going to start crying and you're going to like, I don't know what's going on because we're just at the fair. And you're not going to connect the dots because it's so far in the past.
Right. That's right. And I'm so glad you're bringing, first of all, it's the acknowledgement that you mentioned the mom with the son in that car. You said for the rest of his life. So this is just, I'm also tired of people being like, it's been a year, right? Or it's been 3 years. Like, so that's that myth of like that mom, she will carry that in her, like, we don't, I can't even describe it in words, right? When we bring up the time element for people and how they
That's a
feel.
horrible thing. And the fact that you're talking about that someone's going to carry it, that's not bad. That's not good. It just is.
Just is.
Just is.
Yeah.
Now you could fuel it like therapists out there, people know you can, and this is where Anapana, where we were talking about earlier, is such a good thing because the crazy Scott could fuel this. Why me? How come? Oh, we had so many plans. What am I going to do? How's it going to be? I'm never going to find anybody. I'm going to be all alone. And all this really crazy stuff that's not related to the grief. Mm-hmm. The problem is not grief. The problem is the fueling. The problem is not depression or sadness. The problem is the fueling. We should have a diagnosis in the DSM for crazy fueling disorder or something like that for people that just lobbing on. Because that's the issue, right? That's the issue.
Scott, you should go on I don't know. We just had that update a few years ago. You definitely should be on that committee that puts that on. No, it's true. It's true. The feeding of the anxiety. I love that you're talking about this. So everybody has this misconception thinking it's that cycle of the grief. But it is that thought immersive pattern that we all, our cuckoo selves, that then adds that layer. So it's basically layer upon layer. And then it all gets mushed. Just like we talk about anxiety, depression, insomnia. Sometimes these prescribers have no idea how the hell to prescribe because they're all enmeshed and embedded in each other, that it takes time, right? Or sometimes nobody knows how to diagnose these things.
Right. Yeah, one of the things that happened, you mentioned insomnia. One of the things when I did a Vipassana course, and you hear this when you do the Vipassana courses, that at some point from all the meditation that you're doing, maybe day 7, day 6, your sleep becomes really disturbed. Like you wake up and you just can't sleep because it just becomes this kind of jelly thing. And they say, they give you specific instruction. They say, when you have trouble sleeping, it just is. It just is. If you wake up in the middle of the night and you're laying there, just rest your body and do Anapana or do Vipassana. Don't say, oh, why can't I sleep? Oh my God, it's been 15 minutes. Now it's 20 minutes. Because then you're letting your crazy mind make that much worse, right? It's the same thing while you're sitting, and you get a glimmer of this when you're practicing Vipassana. Great 10-day course. In that whole course, you're sitting. I'm going to do a spoiler alert here for folks. When you take that course, at some point during that Goenka course, like day 5, they do these meditation sets called a meditation of strong determination, a detente. And what they ask you to do is to not move for an entire hour while you're sitting there. It is excruciating because you find a peace and you're really comfortable. That's the first learning is I feel really comfortable sitting here. You could be sitting on a cloud, and then in like 5 minutes you have all this pain coming up and so you want to shift your position. And so you don't shift your position, and then that becomes the theater for you to gain control over the uncomfortable. You're not going to die. Your leg's not going to fall off. No bad things are going to happen. But at some point you make this realization that this thing that's going in my hand where I'm not moving it, I feel this it's tough, it's hot, it's pressure, but I'm making it much worse thinking, is this ever going to end? Mm-hmm. Oh my God, there's so much pain here. Oh my gosh, it's going on and on. It's that mind piece coming back in. If you just observe it just as it is without the overlay, it's a heck of a lot easier.
Yeah.
It's a heck of a lot easier. And then
calling your mind back when it does wander, right? The idea of...
Yeah. And it's the same thing true with grief. If you just observe the grief come up, and it just is. It just is. And you move on to the next piece. It's not a piece that you need a hug for. It's not a piece. It just is.
Mhm. Just is a really great place to be when we're trying to really try to, we are trying to make sense of so much all the time at this stage, right?
Right. Because we're grasping. We're grasping. There's a phrase that I remember from this course. I actually have it printed out on a card, and I actually talk about it sometimes with clients. And that phrase is Yatabuta. Yatabuta. And what that translates to is simply as it is. Not as you would like it to be, not as you would like it not to be. And that's not part of it. It's as it is. It's sunny today. It's rainy today. Well, it's raining. What am I going to do? I'll put on a raincoat. I'm not going to sit around and say, oh my God, it's raining. What's going to happen? I'm going to be a flood. It's raining. I put on a raincoat. I'm happy. I'm dry. That's what we have to do with grief and all these other emotions.
Yeah, wrapping her. So can you walk us through your personal journey and how it has been for you, and where this book and how writing the book, what did it look like? Was it part of your healing process? I know that if it was a part of your healing process, what does healing look like? Is that a word we should even use? Whatever your description is on this whole subject.
Yeah. It's funny how we put in those pieces, right? Because healing implies there's a wound to be fixed.
I know. Do you see? This is where it gets complex. See, even I'm questioning myself, but I'm okay because this is what I want. See, I'm okay asking you that question because if you don't like my question, you will. It's like kids; they will fix it for us, but we have to go there. I can't be so uncomfortable asking you that I don't ask you anything, right? That's what I'm trying to do.
This is a good message for you folks that are out there grieving. For you folks that are out there grieving, there's 3 words that you can say when someone says something and steps on your toes. That's not helpful. You just need to say it. I can't tell you how many times I've said that. And some people are going to be like, oh, what should I say? You got to be prepared to something. Some people are going to, I have one person I said that's not helpful to. I haven't heard from them in almost a year and a half. And I wasn't like, that's not helpful, you jerk, you stupid idiot. All I said was, that's not helpful. And it was a piece earlier on of, I got this unmarked, we had gone canoeing many years ago, Brian and I and this couple, and I got this envelope in the mail, unmarked. And I opened it up, and it was a stack of pictures that she found of Brian and I and all these other things, and she just sent them on. And I know her intention was to, I'm going to send these off to Scott. I just said that's not helpful, right? One of the things I've done over time is I have a stack of pictures that I have a staircase, and it's an open staircase, so you can see everything all the way up to the second story from where you start on a wall. And that whole wall is full of pictures. And slowly over time, I've because we were busy the last 4 years of Brian's life. And so the pictures stopped. They were coming down from the top, and there was a big open spot on the bottom. And so I've been going through pictures, finding pictures of him to put there. It's one of the best parts of my day. Every morning to get up and see him, and these great memories that, one of the things I did in my own healing, I talk about it in the book, is I changed my last name. So my legal last name is now, his last name was Brian. His name was Brian Stevens. And I changed my last name to Graham-Stevens. And that is since 9/11. I mean, everyone's like, we need to make sure you're not a terrorist, right? And that is not an easy thing to do unless you're married or adopted or something. If you want to change your last name these days, legally change your last name on your driver's license, you have to go to court, and you have to talk to a judge, and you have to tell the judge why you're changing. The judge has to issue a court order, and then they send it out. And I actually got a brand new birth certificate with my new last name in it, because you think about this technically, that birth certificate is what's used for your Social Security, your driver's license, to prove that you are you. And so if they just randomly let people change that didn't change all the corresponding documents along with it, outside of marriage or adoption or that legal piece, then that could be a security risk, right? Someone finds that hole and goes through it, and then they get on a plane and blow it up or whatever. And so it's really strict. So I have a new birth certificate. My driver's license says Gregory Scott Graham Stevens. My Social Security says Gregory Scott Graham dash. Everything has been changed. And so I had to go to the judge and give her that, tell her, they want to know why. And so I told them about our life together and what it was about and how Brian died, which I talk about in the book. And I talk about this in the book too. And by the time I finished that, everybody was crying. The judge was crying. The clerk of the court was crying. The people that didn't know me that were waiting next in line to see the judge, but sitting in the back, they were crying. And she said, one of the best things, who would have thought you would hear something like this and hear from a counselor, heard it from a judge. She said, what a privilege that you are changing your name, because every time from today forward, when you write your signature on something, he'll be a part of that and a part of you. It really, wow. It's that's part of what I've done in this process. Is one of the things that we did in our relationship that a lot of other folks don't do is Brian and I talked a lot about who we were and where we wanted to go. And early in our relationship, like in our first year, we had a conversation about what commitment meant and what our evolving life means. Because the truth of things is that everything changes. If you're in love with someone today, 5 years from now, you might not be in love with them. What are you going to do? 6 years from now, the person that you played backgammon with might not play backgammon anymore. What are you going to do if your spouse goes to jail? What are you going to do if your spouse gets depressed and can't get out of bed in the morning? Do you say hit the road, Jack? What does that mean? If they lose their legs, what are you going to do? Is this for better or worse stuff real? Or is it just something that we just say for fun? And so we had a conversation early on in our relationship, and we said, we're throwing the parachutes away. They're gone. Which for us meant that we're not going to jump out of the plane if there were turbulence. There's no choice. We were going to make it work no matter what. And so part of this piece for me is carrying him and carrying his legacy forward. That's why I have the 501c3 farm animal rescue. We started that together. Before I met Brian, I had fish, like in an aquarium, fish. That was it, and, he had dogs and cats, and, I've got dogs and pigs and sheep and alpacas. And, he believed in caring and doing stuff to benefit other beings, especially animals. And so I'm carrying that piece and his vision, which was really our vision, because we talked about that. We said, where do we want to be in 5 years? Where do you want to be? And this is if you're in a relationship with someone, this is a good practice. You write down what you want to be in 5 years, and your spouse writes down what you do, and then compare that. We're out of time.
We're out of time, but oh my gosh, Scott, you have given so much to our time together and the journey. We could talk for hours. I already did, but thank you and all the books that you have written. And of course, this one is the one we did focus on today, but as Scott did share so many of them. Thank you for the graciousness of your time.
What a privilege to be here, Artie.
Thank you. Everyone, you saw how you can get in touch with Scott. You saw earlier, really easy format, just gscottgraham.com. And he said everything is there, all his access to his books, and also ways to reach out for coaching and support. Everyone have a wonderful week, or whenever you tune in, there's so many nuggets to take away. And so pull that one that calls for you or the many that